All right, so we'll go ahead and get started today. Today's actually a little bit different than we've been doing because today is actually the first day of the final project, which is always kind of entertaining. So we're going to shift and going into the last, month and a half of class, we're going to be working primarily on your final project as we learn new things. So when we start building and whatever, I'd rather have you work on your final project. Let's say cutting a section, for example. I'd rather have you cut a section of your final project than just make up a section to cut, or me give you a file to practice section cutting with. I want you to have an actual project. So that lends itself to us starting on the project earlier rather than later. And that's how we end up in October starting on the final project. So that being said, lecture today is going to be a little bit shorter than it typically would be, which hopefully you'll use the extra time that you're freed up to start getting kind of thinking about it or working on this, because in another 2 or 3 weeks, you want the bulk of the final project to be built, because then we'll start talking about lighting and how we might evolve the project into something a little bit more exciting, what the views should be, and then ultimately cutting sections and finally doing line drawings from those. So it's an important kind of transition, and it's important to get started on it now. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and we're going to talk through a lot of this stuff. So let me just switch up my organization here. Perfect. And so we're going to start here with an introduction to what is the assignment. And so first off, we're going to be building a 3D model of what I call an artist retreat. And this is a very small building. We're looking at maybe 500 square feet. So it's small, and it's meant to be small. In both of the locations that I'm going to give you, one will be on the coast in California, Northern California. The other will be up by Lake Tahoe. In both of those locations, this is accessible via a hike. So we're not building a garage. We don't have a road. We don't have a car, any of that stuff included. So it's just about this little retreat. For our purposes, we can argue that we will have power. We'll also argue that you have unlimited resources when it comes to building it. So if you need to helicopter things in or whatever, that would be fine and acceptable. In fact, both of these are in national forest lands or national park lands. So you couldn't build there anyway, but they're kind of loaded sites, and that's really the point. So I want you to think about the site and try to take advantage of that when it comes to your design process, big views, etc. So you're going to be, number one today, you'll select a site, whether you're working on the ocean, on the coast, or whether you're working up in the mountains. And then you want to start thinking about, how do you organize this? I'd say stay away from a traditional space and focus on kind of creating something that's fun and different. So we don't have to have like a perfect kitchen and a perfect bathroom, and think about how it might work. Now, the other thing about this particular project is it's designed for people that are kind of early in their architectural careers. It also works well for people that are later on looking for something to go in a portfolio or to transfer, so that they have a more advanced studio project. So if you're looking for a filler, you can do that. You're going to be designing for an artist. So you can pick an artist and you're designing this retreat for them. If that seems too daunting, you can call yourself an artist and design the retreat for yourself. So you can take this thematically in a bunch of different directions. Okay, so we'll go through the topography, we'll go through wind and those kinds of locations. I am suggesting that you should consider having a sleeping space, a cooking space, maybe a bathroom and a meditation space, maybe an artist studio, something like that. It could all be one room. And so you have to kind of sort through what it is that you're trying to do. The reason that I'm making this so small, the reason it's only 500 square feet, is because I want high level detail of modeling. So I'm not asking you to do 5,000 square feet because you wouldn't be able to model it all. I want high level of detail, small space. So we're going to start working on a 3D computer model of this design. You're going to be building it up. You're going to be thinking about what the space looks like. You're going to be thinking about how to make it. What's the roof look like? What are the walls made of? What do the windows look like? All of those pieces are starting to come together here. And you can kind of set that up. Next class, we will talk about getting that building onto the actual topography of the site and how we're going to deal with renderings. So remember, we're going to use block references. So your building file will exist in one file. the site and your renderings will happen in a different file, and we use those as block references together. So today we're starting with just the building itself. Okay, so if I flip over into our exercise, we'll come back to part 3 and 4 in just a second here. You'll see that this is a kind of a summary of what I just talked about. And I want you to start with this computer model. That's essentially what we're doing. You're building it in its own file, and you're going to bring it into the topography next class. You might need a little piece of topography. You might want to look at the topography, think about how it perches on the hillside or something like that. In both of these locations, there are relatively flat areas and there's steep cliffs, and you can choose to build on either of those kind of perspectives. In terms of what you're coming out with today, I want you to create just a quick render of wherever you are. If you don't have materials assigned, do a screenshot, and that's what you're going to turn into Canvas. So let's go back and continue on discussing assignment 205. What we'll end up doing once we integrate the building into the site and we get everything set up and we start to get materials and that sort of thing, you're going to turn in for the final, which, by the way, I should say the final is due on December 5th. That's the Monday of finals week. Okay, Monday at midnight. You will turn in 4 renderings. The first rendering is an exterior, so on the outside of the building, daytime render. So you'll have a sun in the sky, you'll have an HDRI background image, so you have clouds, and you'll create a photorealistic exterior rendering. Then you'll do a photorealistic interior rendering that is also in the daytime. So you use the same file, you shift yourself to be inside the building, there'll be sunlight streaming into through the windows, something like that, and you'll do an interior daytime rendering. Then we will, and obviously you can't do this yet because we haven't even talked about lighting yet, but we're going to flip over into nighttime renderings, and you'll do an exterior nighttime rendering and you'll do an interior nighttime rendering. As part of that, you're going to need to have light fixtures and lighting that's been installed in your building. That's where assignment 204 comes in. So we'll talk about lighting, we'll start building light fixtures, and that'll be your assignment 204. They're designed to go together. So once you've designed the light fixture, it goes into 205 and provides light for your ultimate building. I haven't given you assignment 204 yet. That's coming down the road in just a little bit, but know that it is in fact coming. After we have those 4 renderings, you'll also be doing 2 line drawings for me. Where we in class will do 3 line drawings, but you're only required to turn in 2 so that you can pick whatever the 2 best ones are to give to me. And that is a plan, a section, and an elevation. Those are the 3 drawings we do. You'll choose the best 2 of those 3 to turn in. And that'll be toward the end of the semester. Once our model is relatively complete, we'll spend time talking about how do we built this great 3D model, how do we get it into line drawings so that we can actually show what an elevation looks like. And so I'll walk you through that process, and that'll be part of it as well. So there ends up being a total of 6 things that you'll have to turn in as part of this final. You'll notice that it's worth 600 points, so it's more than just our typical assignments are typically worth. So it's a big deal, and we want to do a good job on it. Okay, so how do we move on from here? Well, a couple things. One, we have a download of the site information. That's what I'm going to show you today. You can download it, and we'll work on that together. There are other pieces of information here, the Lake Tahoe site and the coastal site. These are all things that I'm giving you to help get you set up. Their materials, their background information, their giant texture maps, topography, etc. We will go through all those next class, but they're there just in case you need them this class for some reason. So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and download the zip file with the site information. I'm going to go ahead. I think it might be. Oh, it is a direct. So let me go ahead and save link as. And I'm just going to put it on the downloads folder for right now. We need to choose to keep it. Choose keep. And it is a zip file. So I'm going to go ahead and show it in its folder. There it is. And I'm going to right click on it and say extract all. And what's inside it? Well, you can see I haven't changed the site since 2014. So this is a site that I've found particularly successful, are these 2 sites, and most people find something that works for them. I've given you AutoCAD files should you want them. I've also given you SketchUp files for you to bring in that particular site. Like I said, We'll cover that part next class. What matters right now is these two KML files, which will load into Google Earth and let you see what the sites look like. So I'm going to do I'm going to go to Google Earth, .google.com, which is a great way, we can't go to the actual sites, so it's a great way of loading up site information and kind of seeing what it is we're working on. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to load that KML file. I'm going to click on this menu here, and we need to load something, and I forget where it is. Bear with me for a second. There it is. Okay, so let me go back through that. We're here. We go to projects. Under open here, you see that we have the ability to import a KML file from my computer. This is what I just downloaded. Let's go into my downloads folder, and we'll look at the first KML file. This is building site 1. We'll go ahead and open it. I believe building site 1 is the Tahoe site. Yep, I'm correct. And so we'll zoom in to Lake Tahoe right there. So let me back up a little bit just so you can see where we are just in general orientation. So this is the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Caldor fire last year burned right up Highway 50. This is Highway 50 in here. Our site is right here. It's on the shoulder of a mountain called Mount Tallac. And I picked this because it's fairly common, and there's some pictures that you can see. If you do a Google search for Mount Tallac, you have an idea of what the terrain looks like. Let's look at it in 3D. I'm going to click on the 3D icon here so we can get a sense for what we're looking at. And so the site that I gave you is a hike up, and luckily for us, it has 2 conditions, and you'll see that there's similarity in these conditions. Those 2 conditions are that we have some cliffside, sorry, but we also have some flat up on top. So there's our flat area. You could build in there. You can start to build on the cliffside. Obviously, it gets kind of steep, but anywhere in here you could choose to build. And actually, the resolution's nice because you can actually see the trail that is the hiking trail to get up to Mount Tallac right there. If we're looking at general views, right, as we zoom in on here, you can see that we have an awfully, oops, too far, back up to there. You have an awfully good view looking out at Lake Tahoe. So like I said, they're very loaded sites, so you can get a sense for what we're looking at right there. All right. And so this is one of those sites. Couple site conditions. Obviously, this is subject to snow, heavy snow in the winter. We do have commonly an upslope wind in the morning. We have a downslope wind in the afternoon. So wind would be coming from behind the site here in the afternoons. If you didn't like the view backwards, you could, of course, right, look back toward the mountains and Lake Aloha that direction. So you've just got some options here. So again, the reason that I give you this Google Earth file is I want you to be able to play around and see these sites and understand what's happening. I believe that if we click on one of these places, a lot of times they have, they change this every year. I was looking for photos. More info. Do they have more photos here? Yeah, these are some views from kind of the top. That's that lake below. Here we are looking up at that cliffside. So it's obviously a little bit more jagged than it was. And those are not the best pictures in the world. We could go into Wikipedia and look at it there. And there'll probably be more pictures of what it looks like. Anyway, you can do a Google search for it as well. So that is our first site, right? It's right over here. Now the pin that I put in is actually a little bit over the edge. I'm okay if you're anywhere up on this flat top up here, or if you're down over in here at all. Okay, so that's the first site. The second site, so if we go back and we open a new one, so let's see in here. Oh, new project, there we go. Import a KML from my computer, and this is potential building site 2. So we'll zoom out from Lake Tahoe, and we're going to zoom back into the California coast. There we go. This is an area called Tomales Point. So if you're familiar with Point Reyes, right? Here's Point Reyes. This is the Point Reyes National Seashore, etc. instead of picking out here, we're actually out at this tip. So we're looking primarily north. And so you'll see some similarities in this. Number one, we have kind of a flat top that's available to us. And we also have some cliff sides that are coming down toward the ocean. So it's kind of similar in its terrain, etc. So you're going to be working somewhere up in here, right? Out at this point. That gives you, as we flip around, a great view out toward the ocean. If we're flipping around here, so we get an ocean view looking out that way. If we're looking back, this is an area called Dillon Beach. If we look up a little bit further, we get Bodega Bay right up in here. And so that's our site. This obviously contains West Coast ocean climate, so it can be cold and foggy. We can also get days that are bright and sunny. We're going to get our offshore winds, etc. So it's a coastal site. You know, not a lot of trees to speak of. So this is another option. Now, you guys can choose either of these sites to work with, and it doesn't really matter to me. I have a lot of information available for both sites when it comes to doing our renderings. The daytime renderings, believe it or not, are some of the hardest ones to do because you want to get them as photorealistic as possible, and no matter how much you render, it's never quite as photorealistic as we'd like. So those are your two sites to pick from. I would encourage you today to actually spend some time, load up these KML files and look around at the sites and try to decide which one feels right for you. Okay. So like I said, today is not particularly long. I think I ended up only talking for 25 minutes or so. And that gets us into you getting started. So remember, today is about building the building, right? We're starting the design of the building. Next class on Wednesday, we'll bring it into a site. So that'll be the next piece of the puzzle. I'm not going to do any demo today because this is now your first kind of nudge into you have to build something yourself. So remember all of the things that we've learned along the way. Maybe you're doing a floor plan that you're extruding. Maybe you're building objects and using scale 1D to start to create those objects. Offsets. All of those are strategies that we've kind of worked through in a very programmatic sense. Now it's time to evolve those into your own work and create your own design. If you want sloping surfaces, if you want twisting surfaces, think about lofts. You can think about cage edits, all of those things that we've talked about. That's where this starts to come into play. Okay, so I'm going to be around today. I know I got emails and Canvas messages with people having some questions or getting confused about some of the exercises or assignments that were going on. So I'm happy to answer any of those questions. But at this point, I'm going to let you guys go and start. You're free to go and start working on this. Use the extra time. There's a reason I'm giving you that extra half hour today. It's because it's more time to work. The rest of it, I'll just be here and I'll be happy to answer any questions. You don't need to wait around for check-ins. We can start the first group right now. If you want to stick around and get credit for it, we'll start in 5 minutes or so. That's what people get time to leave and whatever. Okay, so I'll see you guys all back on Wednesday if you don't come to check-ins today.